Hi little skeletons, it is Disney Queen Skelly here. Just a quick recap, I am sick, so I do apologize if I'm sniffling, my mouth is gaping open because I can't breathe out of my nose, or I look absolutely disgusting right now. So this is another video that we are doing for the Jack Skellington playlist called The Forgotten Prequel and Sequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas. I was very interested in this one. I'm believing the prequel is probably that comic that was released, or graphic novel. I think it's like when Jack and Oogie were teenagers. The sequel, I gotta assume, might be the video game that was for the Xbox 360, but let's see what this guy has to say about it.
The Nightmare Before Christmas is an exceptionally odd film. A stop-motion, animated musical that seeks to blend the haunting imagery of Halloween with the whimsical magic of Christmas, to spin the tale of someone who longs for something new and exciting beyond the world that they know. There's a lot going on here, and there certainly was the potential for these elements to not gel. But, God, it's just such a fun movie.
I was so hoping that him saying odd wasn't like an attack on the movie. Like, I was just hoping it was like, oh, it's odd, but like, we fall in love with it.
Fantastic designs and lovable characters, to the impeccable stop-motion animation, to the insanely catchy soundtrack. It's this triumph of a film that shows how all these zany variables can mix and mingle to produce a charming piece of art that can touch anyone. Thanks to the help of multiple re-releases and every hot topic around the country, The Nightmare Before Christmas has garnered a massive cult following, to the point where its world, characters, and music have become a part of Halloween's larger ensemble of iconography. Just the other day, I was turning onto my street when I saw a house decorated with Oogie Boogie.
That is so beautiful! Holy crap!
Jack Skellington and Sally on the front porch. When considering where the film started, it's kind of crazy to think how far it's come. The idea for The Nightmare Before Christmas actually started as a poem written.
God, look how young he looks.
Tim Burton back in 1982, drawing inspiration from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Although some key elements in the film like Sally and Oogie Boogie were nowhere to be seen, the core narrative of Jack Skellington longing for something new in life and stealing Christmas for himself holds true. If you're interested, there's actually an adaptation of the poem that you can find on YouTube that's narrated by the legend Christopher Lee. Burton considered having it turned into a television special or a children's book, but after showing some of his storyboards and concept art to Disney animator Henry Selick, it seems like maybe Disney could turn this into something, even if it was an animated special. However, The Nightmare Before Christmas was deemed too weird for Disney to take the risk, and
Too weird? What the fuck, Disney? Like, if Disney could see what they said about, like, if Disney now could see what they said about this then, like, Disney's put out some weird shit. Should I bring up Strange World? Because I feel like we should bring up Strange World.
Burton was fired in 1984. After making a bigger name for himself in the industry with the success of 1988's Beetlejuice and 1989's Batman, Disney was now far more interested in Burton, who had not forgotten about his original project all those years ago.
Yeah, but now they're interested in him because he'll clearly make a profit for them.
Except, also not interested enough, because they released it under their subsidiary brand, Touchstone Pictures, as, according to Selick himself, they thought it could damage the brand. Yeah, Disney kind of treated the IP pretty terribly until they realized they could make...
Yeah, well, Disney has already damaged their brand so much in the last, 10 years now? Maybe less than that? Like, they've damaged it so badly nowadays that, a movie like this probably wouldn't have broken Disney 30 years ago.
From it. Regardless, Selick and he decided to bring The Nightmare Before Christmas to life in the form of a stop-motion animated film, and began the long, arduous production in July 1991. Finally, in October 1993, 30 years ago, The Nightmare Before Christmas was released. But this is where it gets interesting. Somewhere amidst the sea of re-releases and Hot Topic merch, some brave soul stood tall and asked, "But what if we made it a video game?" To which they were met with thunderous applause.
What did I say?
And the promise of not just one game based on the IP, but two. The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King.
Hang on a minute, there was a Game Boy game? I knew about Oogie's Revenge, but what the fuck with the Game Boy game?
And Oogie's Revenge. These two games have a bit of a strange relationship, coming out here in North America on the same day, October 10th, 2005, for the Game Boy Advance and Xbox as well as the PS2 respectively. Although I wanted the console title Oogie's Revenge after seeing it at a friend's house, I didn't have either of those systems to play it, so my parents were kind enough to get me the Game Boy Advance title, The Pumpkin King, that I didn't even know existed until I unwrapped it. Hey, thanks Mom and Dad. Okay, so
I love that cover.
what kind of games are they then? Perhaps a platformer, maybe an action game? Actually, a rhythm game would make a lot of sense as a musical. Well, what if I told you that the Game Boy Advance one was a Metroidvania, and the PS2 and Xbox one was a DMC character action game? And also a prequel and a sequel to the movie, but, small team.
Oh, so we're only talking about the video games. I do have a graphic novel about Oogie Boogie and Jack as like teenagers. I'll probably read it for you guys after I'm done with reading and analyzing the Pumpkin Queen book. Or I might just read it for you guys anyways. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
It's such a strange notion to wrap your head around initially. Genres aside, just the fact that they went the route of using the games to continue the stories. I actually love that idea, and wouldn't mind more cross-series ventures doing this. What's even more is that, while not officially confirmed by Disney from what I could find, these were considered canon by the fan base for the longest time, until the release of the novel
Fuck that book. I really hope it gets better. I'm just pissed at where I am, and I just hope it gets better.
Of the Pumpkin Queen in 2022, which clashed with the game's narrative. Even just forgetting the canonical status, making Jack into a Belmont and Dante from Devil May Cry sounds like...
Wait. So this book is completely deviating away from what the video game was? Oh, okay. I see.
A hell of a fever dream, but it actually makes a lot of sense. The Nightmare Before Christmas's spooky imagery and world design matches exceptionally well with both Castlevania and Devil May Cry, who are practically responsible for creating their respective genres. Yet, this is all just scratching the surface, so to cap off this October, we're going to be visiting a Halloween town to cover all things related to the Nightmare Before Christmas video games. This goes without saying, but this video will contain spoilers for both the film and the game, so be warned. With that...
Second warning, be warned about the spoilers.
The way, if you haven't wondered what these games were about, I'd say it's time you begun.
I'm so glad that I decided to end this reacting for the Jack Skellington playlist with this video. Gets the taste of that awful, rip-off out of my mouth.
Before diving into the main event, there is technically one other video game that is built on The Nightmare Before Christmas. A humble little flash game called Jack's Sleigh Ride, which was released for an app and website called Disney LOL. This app was taken down in 2018, but the flash game can still be played if you look around for it. Honestly, the game is pretty simple. Control Jack using the mouse to fly over the houses, grabbing candy, and click the mouse to deliver gifts to rack up your points, while avoiding this tank, who does not play around. Like, this dude hates Christmas. The one catch is that you'll get a...
Well, it's because Jack gets shot down by tanks in the movie, but yes, I agree.
...view of what color present you have in your sack, and you have to drop it on houses that match that color. If you hit a string of, say, 3 purple houses with a purple gift, you'll get all of them, as well as a point bonus to boot. You can build up combos by hitting your marks, which is way easier than you'd think because the hitboxes are super forgiving. Honestly, it's probably just easier to spam the presents because look at this! As you advance through the levels, different colored houses get added to the mix, and some of them shoot balloons? According to the tutorial page, they're toxic gases, but why in God's name do these households have toxic gases ready to...
That would be something that you'd have to call someone for, I think, to kind of get your house looked at. Am I wrong?
...their chimneys at a moment's notice. This flash game doesn't run that smoothly, so you can take some cheap hits. Once your health bar is depleted, it's game over. Damn, well, okay. I guess 80,000 really ain't that bad. Is this the... Oh my,
That's fucking epic.
That is the most perfect cut I could possibly imagine. But yeah, That's Jack's sleigh ride. With that detour over, let's take a closer look at the first of the two main titles, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King. The box art is actually pretty clean and has a sick lenticular cover just like Majora's Mask's cartridge, so already a strong first impression. This game was really
Literally so cool. I don't know if I've talked about this, but when we went to Midsummer Scream last year, there was actually someone dressed up as Scarecrow Jack Skellington. And I showed him the picture. I said, was this inspiration for your costume? He goes, hey, it's my day job. And I was like, oh, like I wanted to cry. I got a picture with him. I think I still have it. Oh, it makes me happy.
Game Boy Advance and developed by Tosei, a Japanese company that's worked on a handful of earlier Dragon Ball titles, assisted with several Intelligent System properties, and even shares the copyright for the legendary Starfy with Nintendo. On the publisher side in most territories was Disney Interactive Studios, a company that unfortunately shut down in 2016 alongside the discontinuation of Disney Infinity, which
Oh god, I remember Disney Infinity. I even have the little Jack figure that was supposed to go with it.
Winton was also in. Originally, I planned to cover every single video game that featured The Nightmare Before Christmas in it. Until I realized how insane that sounded. Anyways, The Pumpkin King hit store shelves in Japan on September.
I know that Magic Kingdom game has him in it. I've tried playing it. I got kind of bored. I may try to return to it. I don't know.
8th, 2005. In the US about a month later on October 10th, and finally Europe on November 10th, which just feels wrong. There's something tragic about the Halloween-themed video game coming out more than a week after the actual holiday.
Yeah, but if you really think about it, it's a Halloween and Christmas game. So I say so long as you get it out before the end of December, you're fine.
To those that want to make the argument that The Nightmare Before Christmas is a Christmas movie, so November is a fine release date, that doesn't work here because there is no Christmas to be found in this game.
Okay, that's fair. My bad. Continue.
Pumpkin King serves as a prequel to the events of the 1993 film, meaning Jack hasn't discovered Christmastown yet, nor has he met Sally or Oogie Boogie officially. Let's cover a brief synopsis of the prequel's narrative. Years prior to the events of the film, Jack Skellington, still optimistic and not yet disenchanted by the monotonous routine, prepares for the annual Halloween celebration, where he plans to debut his newest trick, the Pumpkin King transformation. Meanwhile, local brats Lock, Shock, and Barrel tell their boss Oogie Boogie about Jack, and how he's the scariest guy around. With his pride wounded and the desire to be the only king in Halloween Town, Oogie sends the three to capture and bring Jack to him. However, in a similar fashion to the film, the miscreants capture the wrong person initially, this time being Dr. Finkelstein's new assistant, Sally. Enraged, Oogie sends his army of bugs to plague Halloween Town and ruin the festivities. Jack then sets out to the far corners of Halloween Town in order to save his scattered and troubled friends, and stop Oogie Boogie so that Halloween may be saved in time. It's an incredibly simple setup, with the only other
That sounds like an incredible plot.
plot development outside of brief conversations with the citizens of Halloween Town coming at the game's finale, which I think is perfectly fine, especially when considering the genre this title falls under. As mentioned previously, The Pumpkin King is a Metroidvania-style game, where the player must navigate through a wide assortment of areas to find upgrades, abilities, and new routes that become accessible via those very abilities.
I'll say Jack just set himself on fire. What the fuck?
That sense of discovery, mystery, and rewarding the player for remembering previous landmarks and areas that has led to the genre gaining mass appeal. Titles like Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night that have defined the genre are consistently praised for the very nature of their construction, giving the player a sense of the world and controls before organically opening it up for a large-scale exploration, all while not making the player feel limited in those early sections. Okay, so 8 years after Symphony of the Night redefined the genre, how does the Pumpkin King fare and manage to make a name for itself? Well, it really doesn't do anything in particular to stand out, but it still fares perfectly fine. Over the course of the adventure, you will travel to a number of locations from the film, such as Jack's house, Dr. Finkelstein's lab, the Pumpkin Patch, and Oogie Slayer, all of which will have the player returning to them at some point to explore a section tucked deeper in the labyrinth of rooms and unlocked with a new ability. There's nothing in here that had me particularly captivated or felt like the abilities were being used in.
Meanwhile, I'm over here like, wow, this game is incredible. And this guy's like, it's okay. I don't play video games that much, so I really wouldn't know, like, a good video game plot versus a bad video game plot or playthrough. This seems cute.
Exceptionally creative ways beyond their general use, but the game did do a rather good job of varying traversal through certain sections. For example, a section in the graveyard takes advantage of these bells to make material platforms to use for progression, while the Pumpkin Patch utilizes these mushrooms as cover for a stealth segment of sorts. Not every one of these ideas was a hit, as I wasn't necessarily fond of these mosquito bastards, but I wouldn't say
Yeah, what is with those mosquito bastards? They don't look like they belong.
Were offensive, and I respect the idea of varying these regions not just by their visual appearance, but by the means of progression and enemy.
Oh, well, I guess the mosquitoes could be part of the bugs that are inside Oogie Boogie, huh? Yeah, that makes sense. See, it's the worm! It's our wormy friend!
I only found myself frustrated with the level design at 2 intervals, which were not necessary for the main story and just involved leaps of faith with incredibly strict timing that would punish you by having you cycle through several screens and potentially resources just for another attempt. Exploration is also pretty straightforward, with some areas needing a power-up or using simple coded blocks to indicate the necessary upgrade, similarly to Metroid's Speed Booster and Missile Blocks. The biggest criticism I have with regards to this game's exploration is the lack of agency given to the player. While some Metroidvanias may use indicators to guide the player initially, or subtle ones throughout the duration of the game to at least hint at a general direction, the Pumpkin King ubiquitously plants signs with red arrows that scream, "Hey buddy, you should go that way." I understand that.
Okay, but as someone who doesn't play video games, those arrows can be very, very useful.
Game may have been designed with a younger audience in mind who might need that guidance, but it heavily strips away those pillars of discovery and agency that support the genre. Since the main path is laid out rather plainly, exploration is finite and primarily tied to upgrades for your health in the form of shrunken heads or collectible items. As far as I'm aware, these collectibles do absolutely nothing, and while I got a lot, I didn't get all of them and never felt compelled to do so.
Well, okay, but if you also look at a game like, say, Security Breach Ruin or Help Wanted, you'll also get collectibles there too that just don't really do anything, but they're there because you want to collect them. And some people, like my husband, are very determined to get a lot of collectibles even if they don't do anything, because it's just fun to collect them all, and you feel tempted to want to collect them all regardless if they do anything or not.
I believe that a reward for these pickups or more kit-altering items would have helped to reward players' curiosity and skill. Speaking of Jack's kit, behind every good Metroidvania is a fun and varied arsenal that feels satisfying to use and offers new methods of tackling situations. Jack's utility belt consists of the frog gun, the Batmarang, pumpkin bombs, and the elixir that allows him to temporarily turn into the Pumpkin King. It's not the most revolutionary ensemble of tools, but it covers enough ranges and general uses that it does its job. As Jack progresses, he'll also get enhanced versions of each weapon, from bigger bombs to a buff-ass frog that just socks enemies in the jaw. Boss fights may take
God, I am!
a second or two to figure out the appropriate part to hit, and some did come down to the wire, but they're rather self-explanatory. I do love the variance in designs, with some being entirely unique, like most of Oogie's bugs, while others draw inspiration from the film, like this snake in the laboratory. But before moving to the conclusion, let's touch on the visuals and music. These are the categories that I feel this game succeeds in the most. The sprite work is actually pretty impressive for the Game Boy Advance, and there are some
Oh, Zero looks so sad!
animations here, especially with Jack's movement. One of the things that I've always loved about the Nightmare Before Christmas characters, especially Jack Skellington, is how it feels to be a perfect marriage between the medium of stop-motion animation and just being incredibly satisfying.
Was he just scared by his own reflection? That is so cute.
And interesting designs. Jack's tall, thin build and limber nature combine to create some very fascinating movement that translates exceptionally well to stop motion, and they do a good job carrying it over to the game. Like, every single time you defeat a boss, Jack does this epic dance to a musical number, and it's the goofiest thing ever, but I always look forward to it every time. Each of the locations also has its own stylistic
That's so precious. I'm sorry if I keep saying that's so cute or that's so precious, but I do find it cute or precious that these little things are in this video game. This game is so cute.
separates them from one another, alongside their unique gimmicks. There are a lot of references to the movie tucked away in this game, and as a longtime fan of the movie,
you know, those arrows that could be pointing could be representative of his Scarecrow self pointing. So, and I know it's represented here, but you know, those arrows, you know, he did point in the beginning of the movie, so.
Does feel like the developers did research and cared for the IP. On the audio side of things, I've heard some people mention that the music can be grating on the ears, which I can understand as a criticism when the entire soundtrack takes inspiration.
Is he like humping the air? Hold on, let me back up.
Grating on the ears, which I can understand as a criticism when the
What the fuck movement is that?
soundtrack takes inspiration from the films, and those would be the definitive versions of these songs, but I don't think they're that bad either. The only real issue is that the loops are rather short, giving them the ability to get old real fast in a game of this style. That last song in particular comes from Oogie's Lair, which is the destination for this game's finale. After battling through the swarms of bugs, the mayor informs Jack of Oogie Boogie, which...
The music isn't terrible, but I can understand if people get annoyed of it. If it's just like a 10-second loop playing over and over and over again while you're in this video game for like probably a good couple of hours.
...them on the path to stop him, as well as Lock, Shock, and Barrel, who give you the runaround through his lair. Finally, after tracking down the trio, the passage opens to the final encounter with Oogie Boogie, which is split into two phases. Phase 1 is similar to the film's finale, with Jack and Oogie becoming entangled in a dance as he avoids numerous traps on Oogie's roulette wheel of death. Once Oogie rolls his dice to determine the attack he will use, he becomes tuckered out, leaving open a window of vulnerability. Once defeated, you'll get your victory dance. Oogie will call Jack a pumpkin pussy. Wait, excuse me, what did he just say? After that, it's on to the final phase.
Is that fucking real?
Where Oogie and his cronies will ride around on a large bug. This is by far the toughest fight in the game, but it's primarily because he has this sequence where he becomes completely invulnerable and it lasts forever. If you spam pumpkin bombs, it'll take you far, but man, did I cut it close with all my reckless damage boosting. Following the fight, Jack threatens Oogie to never cross him again, gets introduced to Sally in an extremely brief fashion, and finally celebrates Halloween with all of his friends, rolling the credits on the prequel story.
And it's no wonder she ends up falling for him.
The game took me close to 6 hours to beat while collecting most of the extras, so it's not a long game at all, and could be pumped out in an afternoon or two. Really, the last thing I've mentioned with this game are the minigames. Over the course of the story, you'll corner Lock, Shock, and Barrel, who will then give Jack a minigame as a present, usually serving as a pretty effective distraction. I never thought that a meta element would be worked into the progression of a Nightmare Before Christmas story, but here we are. I find it rather strange that these are collected over the course of the main game, since these sorts of side distractions are normally unlocked via collectibles or via exploration. Honestly, these would have been perfect rewards for collecting the pickups, which might have incentivized players to actually want to find them all. That is what I would say if these minigames weren't painfully mediocre and just really unfun. Bonebreaker is a button masher alternating between the left and right D-pad buttons. Whackhammer involved swinging the correct hammer on bats or rats while avoiding bombs that pass on the conveyor belt. And Skullduggery is just that memory game roll out the barrels from Mario Party.
Oh, come on. That sounds like fun to me if you just want to pass like a half hour doing something.
Except it greatly overstays its welcome. These really did not have to be included in this game, but to my complete dismay, these minigames support multiplayer via the link cable. To which I ask, Who the hell is calling up 3 of their friends for a riveting game session of Bone Breaker from
Shit, you don't know what all of us are doing at 2:30 p.m. on a Saturday.
The Nightmare Before Christmas, The Pumpkin King for the Game Boy Advance. All in all, The Pumpkin King is a perfectly fine video game. The gameplay's alright, the music works, and the animations and art are actually pretty good. If you're looking for the next Super Metroid or Hollow Knight on your hunt for more Metroidvanias, I don't think this will satisfy you, but if you're a fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas, yeah, it might be worth checking out.
I'm a major fan and would love to check it out if I owned a fucking Game Boy.
Certainly not revolutionary, but it doesn't feel like a shoehorned license game either, and there are enough references and love for the series that warrant its existence. Closing out our package deal is the sister title to The Pumpkin King, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. I always found this art of Jack on the cover to be kind of strange. Like, why does his skull look so crinkly and rugged here?
I could kind of agree with you there. I think that's more just shadows, but it does look like he has dents.
Released on the same day as The Pumpkin King, Oogie's Revenge served as the counterpart for those that possessed a PS2 or Xbox, wanted their fill of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and needed more Devil May Cry in their lives, since the game uses that series as the main inspiration for its gameplay, and came out the same year that Devil May Cry 3 released. That is a very bold strategy. Alright, I need to know, who the hell worked on the Capcom? There's actually no way. Can I even call this a Devil May Cry ripoff when the bloody developers themselves worked on it? They could have just taken the sticker from Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne and slapped it on this. Much like how the Pumpkin King song.
This guy sounded a little too surprised. Marvel vs. Capcom. Put Oogie Boogie and Jack in there.
Extend the overall narrative with an origin story for Jack's encounter with Oogie Boogie, Oogie's Revenge serves the role of a sequel to the film. After another successful Halloween, Jack feels discouraged that something more could be done, and ventures off into the unknown in the search for something new and exciting. It's practically the same setup as the film, except this time Jack is equipped with Dr. Finkelstein's newest invention, the Soul Robber, which is essentially just one of those sticky hand things you get in a goodie bag and smack your friends with for
Soul Robber sounds kind of menacing, though.
seconds. However, Jack's departure opens the window of opportunity for Lock, Shock, and Barrel to resurrect Oogie Boogie. The idea of resurrecting Oogie is kind of weird to think about, since he's a collection of bugs. Do each of those bugs contain a piece of Oogie Boogie like Exodia, or is it like a Halo Gravemind where a certain number of bugs put together form an Oogie consciousness? Maybe it's just like making a snowman, but with bugs. Either way, Oogie has taken control of Halloween Town by deceiving, capturing, or incapacitating its numerous citizens, and using the newly brainwashed Dr. Finkelstein as a mouthpiece for making a dangerous Halloween to please Jack. After returning to a ghost town and encountering Oogie's shadow, Jack once again sets out to foil Oogie's schemes and save his friends. Very much like the Pumpkin King, the setup is rather simple, and
So basically, Oogie's spirit has come back to torment Jack, and Lock, Shock, and Barrel are gonna snowman him in order to bring him back. This is interesting.
prefer that for a game based on the film. The narrative does become a bit more ambitious, however, as a little over halfway through the game, it's revealed that Oogie's plans extend beyond ruling Halloween Town, but capturing the leaders of the other holidays and becoming the 7 Holidays King. The holidays
Oh, that's intense.
are Halloween Town and Christmas Town, of course, Easter Town, Valentine's Day Town, Thanksgiving Town, that's just an all-you-can-eat buffet, St. Patrick's Day Town, and
I have a feeling a lot of the people in Thanksgiving Town have more than one belt loop on their pants undone.
Independence Day Town. Okay, hold up. I have so many questions. First off, who are the leaders of some of these towns? Like, we know Jack is the leader of Halloween Town, Santa for Christmas, the Easter Bunny for Easter, and I guess Cupid and St. Patrick are safe.
Nope, fucking nope, it ain't Cupid. It's some bitch named Rosie something or rather, Valentino. It should be Cupid, but it's not Cupid because, you know, just, I'm sorry if you haven't watched my reading and reviewing Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. You should. I go on some pretty long tangents about who rules Valentine's Town, and it certainly ain't Cupid. No, it should be Cupid, but it ain't Cupid. Just saying. Yeah.
For Valentine's Day Town and St. Patrick's Day Town, respectively, but who runs Thanksgiving Town? Christopher Columbus? Because, oh boy, that's, you know what? I'm just gonna say it's a giant turkey.
Probably is a giant turkey. Let's just say it's a giant turkey. But then, wouldn't they be eating turkeys, so that's technically cannibalism, right?
But then we're left with the most confusing of all. What the heck is an Independence Day Town?
That's fucking Uncle Sam shooting off rockets every hour.
Is this just America perpetually stuck in the year 1776? And if so, does that make the leader commander-in-chief of the Continental Army George Washington? Or wait, the real world is actually shown to be a part of the Nightmare Before Christmas universe, meaning the leader likely has changed over time. Okay, so this game came out in 2005, which means that the leader and the one in the sack would be George W. Bush! You know, this is a rabbit hole that I do not think I want to continue in. Question.
And let's not continue in it. This is supposed to be a fun video about a Nightmare Before Christmas sequel, so let's continue that.
Of patriotism aside, one of the most alluring components to this game is the emphasis on trying to make it feel like a legitimate continuation from the movie. Oki's Revenge looks to bring back as much as the original voice cast as possible, and while they weren't able to bring everyone back, they managed to do an impressive job with two of them.
Alright, let's see. They got Chris Sarandon and Danny Elfman back for Oki's Revenge. They couldn't get Catherine O'Hara. They got back Ken Page. They also got back Paul Rubens, but they couldn't get back Ed Ivory. That sucks. Corey Burton. Wonder if they're related. Catherine O'Hara and Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman didn't voice... Oh, well, technically Chris Sarandon came back for Jack, but Danny Elfman didn't. D. Bradley Baker. That name sounds very familiar. Mayor Glenn Shaddix did come back. Dr. Finkelstein was not played by William Hickey, instead by Jess Harnell. Corpse Kid, Debbie Durst. Vampires 1, 2, and 3, Carrie Katz, Sherwood Ball, and Randy Crenshaw. And then the Igor, the Hanging Tree, and the Clown obviously did not come back either. That was D. Bradley Baker for the Hanging Tree and Clown. Rob Paulson for Igor. Okay. Oh, instead of Thurl Ravenscroft, Joe Ranft, and Danny Elfman. Okay, well, still a pretty good cast lineup for Oogie's Revenge.
Important pieces being Christopher Sarandon as Jack Skellington and Ken Page as Oogie Boogie.
You're not going to get anyone that sounds similar. Just saying.
Page is spectacular in this role, and still brings that same energy that makes the character so lovable. Sarandon is in a strange situation.
Well, that just creeped me out a little.
Because the voice of Jack Skellington in the film was divided between two people. Danny Elfman, who acted as the singing voice for Jack, and Sarandon, who handled the speaking voice. Here, Sarandon is responsible for both parts because, yes, this game has a lot of lyrical tracks that all remix songs from the film. Sarandon does a pretty good job with the songs, but there are a couple lines that feel a bit stilted or low on energy. It's over! It's over! This time you've gone too far! It's over! The other voice actors...
Oh, wait, he sounds really good! Oh my god! I have the game, but it's for the Xbox, and we don't have an Xbox anymore. Oh, I'm curious if Luis can get it on the PS5. Maybe as like a digital download or something. Oh, I'm gonna have to ask.
Do a stellar job of following their predecessors. And the replacement actors would take on all of the original's roles, like Susie, who replaces Catherine O'Hara for Sally and Shock. The new renditions of familiar songs are also excellent and fun alternatives to the original melodies. For example, What's This in the film embodies a whimsical, energetic tone as Jack is bombarded with emotions and excitement. But the remix from the game, Oh No, drops to a minor key to give it a more menacing, anxious feeling as Jack rushes to stop Oogie's destruction of Christmastown. Even Sally's song is morphed.
The song is called Oh No. That's great!
Slow song concerned with unrequited love to a fast-paced battle tune as you take down a giant spider. Certainly not the direction I would have expected, but it works out. As long as
Okay, I'm like 1,000% curious if this game's soundtrack is actually available for download. Dang it, it's not available for download. Oh, that would have been incredible if I could have actually downloaded the music from this game. I'm gonna listen to it on YouTube though.
grow old of the battle theme being This Is Halloween, it's a pretty strong soundtrack, and I especially like the songs used for the hinterlands and the final boss battle. More on that later. I recommend finding the soundtrack and giving it a listen.
Bitch, I just tried! I couldn't find it!
My main criticism for Oogie's Revenge is the gameplay itself. The style matches what I'd expect from the series, the remixes are excellent, and the graphics are pretty solid. But Jack feels pretty limited. With his Soul Robber, Jack has a default attack and a grab. The default attack can be charged or used in conjunction with a spin of the control stick to become an AoE defensive maneuver, and the grab can be converted into repeated slams or a throw, but that's about the extent of his offensive options. There's a taunt too, and aside from that, he has a dodge with some neat animations. Jack is shallower than the legs.
It's like, how can we put sprinkles on this kind of, mediocre cake?
Other character action stars, such as Bayonetta, Kratos, or later forms of Dante. I've actually heard that the game is pretty similar to Devil May Cry 1 in this regard. There are also the different stance changes unlocked over the story for use either mid-combat or for bypassing some obstacles like boarded up doors, or this asshole, which... oh, we'll get to him. The two forms of...
Sounds like someone has beef.
are the Pumpkin King and Santa Jack, with the former giving Jack a slow fire breath attack and a burst option that's extremely useful at the cost of resource management. And the latter form utilizes multi-purpose traps in the form of gifts like poison, stun, or freeze presence. Truthfully, I barely use these forms unless it was necessary, since enemies can enter an aggro state where they are powered up, but can be removed by stunning them with Santa Jack's gifts. But I feel that most of the average playthrough is going to be default Jack, since the Soul Robber is by far the most reliable, powerful, and fun weapon to use in his kit, especially after purchasing several upgrades in the shop that give you combo finishers. One problem that feeds into my criticism of the gameplay is the lack of enemy variety. With a property as creative and weird as The Nightmare Before Christmas, they could have created some really unique enemy types, but most of the common enemies you fight in this game are either ghosts based on the introduction to This Is Halloween, or some variant of skeleton inspired by those ones you find in Oogie's Lair. There are different tiers of skeletons and ghosts as you advance through the game, but it did feel a bit uninspired. And man, groups of them would sometimes combo the hell out of me if I made a wrong move. Maybe they're just pissed about all those late night sessions of Bonebreaker with the boys. So, the gameplay is middling. But there is one trick it has up its sleeve that sets it.
I can't understand that frustration if there's not much variety in terms of, like, what the gameplay is. Luis found it very hard to play Security Breach Ruin, because, like, 90% of it was him just finding nodes and shutting them down, and he really couldn't find much to be excited about in the game, even though I know there was like a million different routes he could have taken, but they're just really hard to find.
3, 2, 1. So yeah, if it wasn't strange enough to...
Wow, that's cool.
The Nightmare Before Christmas game, the gameplay of Devil May Cry, it transforms into a hybrid rhythm game with major boss fights. This is awesome. It feels perfectly on brand for the series and captures the whimsical nature of the movie that makes it so special. I really wish the game found a way to work this mechanic into its identity more, because it would make it far more unique and fascinating. As I mentioned, in terms of the story's progression, you'll find yourself moving through a number of locations from the film, such as the graveyard, Oogie's Lair, Halloween Town, and so on and so forth. However, unlike the Pumpkin King, which is one seamless experience, Oogie's Revenge is divided into chapters, with usually these chapters being contained within a single area. For example, Chapter 22 is primarily contained to one section of Christmas Town. And yes, Christmas Town actually is in this game, unlike in the Pumpkin King. However, it really is only in here for 2 chapters. If you're looking to get more of your Christmas fix playing a Nightmare Before Christmas title, you're better off just playing Kingdom Hearts 2, since that has the most fleshed out version of that world.
I cannot tell you how many times Harley Baby told me about this level, in Kingdom Hearts 2. I really want to watch someone play it, like online or something. I gotta find someone who's played it.
In total, there are 24 main chapters in the game and several unlockable side chapters that you can discover. Throughout these chapters, you'll have a main goal to accomplish, and along the way, you'll fight a number of enemies that can give you credits to purchase items or upgrades from the shop, as well as find collectibles and other upgrades, such as these golden pumpkins that extend your health bar, or these trophies that you can find in the gallery in Jack's house. Because this game is divided into chapters just like any other character action game, this game has a ranking system. Completing chapters quickly, taking a minimal amount of hits, and spooking enemies will give you a higher score. If you score an A in all categories, you'll be rewarded with a figure that is added to your collection, and these can be used to unlock other items, such as music or extra costumes for Jack. Additionally, this game has
Not his nightgown!
a combo system, and it feels much more lenient than a title like Bayonetta. You can keep a combo even after getting hit, and sometimes you can get pretty long combos. I especially love the way
That was awesome.
the narrator delivers the lines because it's as if they're trying to be spooky but epic at the same time. But regarding progression, sometimes this game could be rather unclear. You can click on the map to get a sense of direction on where to go sometimes, but that's not always the biggest help. The biggest roadblock that I faced was with this asshole right here, the clown with the tearaway face. See, Oogie has strapped a rocket to his unicycle, which means that he cannot stop and he is continually crying for help. Somebody stop me! You could try hitting him, you could try grabbing him, but nothing really works. You're not gonna make any progress. That is until you learn you can stun him with Santa Jack's gift. The jets kick back in shortly after, so what you have to do is head over to Dr. Finkelstein's lab to grab the bone driver tool to stop him. The game is really unclear about this. There's some language that hints at needing a tool, but this process of having to stop him with a gift, realizing it doesn't work so you have to go get a tool, and coming back to do it again is the most confusing thing in the game by far. And the
Okay, yeah, but like if you know you need a tool and you know where to get your tools, you might as well just grab what makes sense.
same thing that stumped my friend and me as a kid. When I was younger and went over to my friend's house to play this game, we got stuck on this chapter for hours. We had no idea what to do with this jackwagon until my friend learned that you have to go get the driver and use it in the menu, and it's pretty precise too. Admittedly, I got stuck in this game more than the Metroidvania, which is horribly ironic because a Metroidvania is all about exploration and finding new paths, and this one had more times where the path felt most unclear. That being said, the visual flair in this game really helps to flesh out a lot of these environments. Like the Halloween Town Plaza and Oogie's Lair are very interesting, and I'd love to see more of these locations. On that note, let's jump to the filthy finale. After thwarting Oogie's attempts to murder Santa with a train, yes, you heard that right, Oogie flies away on a sleigh only to plummet to the earth. Enraged and refusing to give up, Oogie summons an army of bugs to transform into a fucking kaiju, kicking off the two-phase final boss. The first phase simply
What in the actual fuck is that?
requires Jack to light Oogie up using these open vents and isn't exactly noteworthy. However, the second phase might be my favorite thing in this entire game. Two of the best factors this game has going for it are the interactions between Jack and Oogie, as well as the musical numbers, particularly those that make use of the rhythm mechanics. So, what if we had a musical final boss battle between these rivals set to a remix of Oogie Boogie's theme? Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and makes me wish that this mechanic was worked into this game's identity even more. After Oogie's defeat, Halloween Town is saved, and Jack and Sally share one more moment together atop the spiral hill and beneath the moon, rolling the credits on Oogie's revenge. The sequel story took me a bit longer than the prequel, coming in around 9 hours.
Can you imagine just your final boss of a game being a fucking dance battle? Hell yeah.
And while I do think I appreciate the concept of a Metroidvania based on The Nightmare Before Christmas more, Oki's Revenge has more going for it with its music, voice acting, and more interesting narrative. Just like The Pumpkin King, it's not remarkable by any means, but it's charming enough, and I'd honestly love to hear whether Devil May Cry fans prefer this game or Devil May Cry 2, since I hear a lot of conflicting thoughts about that game. The people that worked on this game did seem to have an adoration for the franchise. According to production manager Masato Yoshino, he went into the meeting with Tim Burton with the attitude that he was the biggest fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and he wanted to prove himself. While I don't think that Oki's Revenge is a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, I do think it's a solid game that I'm both happy I played and exists. The same goes for The Pumpkin King. Well, just in time for Halloween, these are the 3 main games based on The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Alright, y'all. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll leave his closing thoughts to himself. If you want to hear them, the link for this will be in the description box below, along with the channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, little skeletons. Please stay safe. I love you guys.